Hi there. Thanks for tuning in for more poetry. Today we're going to hear from James Merrill, another American poet whose dates are 1926 through 1995. And I should mention it's becoming increasingly clear to me that I have a big blind spot in my poetry reading and hence sharing, which is living poets. So apologies for that. I do read some living poets and I do have some work I can share that I look forward to sharing. But it's, yeah, I've never really thought about this, but I have a tendency to read the work of dead poets. So apologies if there are any poets out there watching this. But for today, yeah, James Merrill, what can I say about James Merrill? One thing is that his poetry can be quite challenging. He'll probably be like the hardest poet I pick to share with y'all. And I think that's just because he was so smart, so scary smart. And he had nothing but time. He was very wealthy. His father was the Merrill in the Merrill Lynch banking empire. So he had, you know, fabulous education, plenty of time and money, and he devoted himself to his craft as well as to living a good life. He was also famously generous to his friends and lovers and to a lot of other writers and artists who benefited from the support of his foundation. He was gay. He died of, tragically, an AIDS-related heart attack. But yeah, his work is just, it's like his poems are these fabulous wonder boxes, these like mirrored, intricate, faceted jewels or something. And they really can pull you in and you can stay with him for a long time because his vocabulary is so immense, and you know, he'll have double and triple meanings associated with certain words, and he sort of works his way like around a subject. And I found early in the pandemic, last March, I had just picked up this hefty volume of his collected poems, which I was so glad that I had, because early on in March and April of last year, I would get up early every morning, just trying to like figure out like what the hell is going on in the world, and I would just give myself an hour to spend with James Merrill, and I would just read 2 or 3 poems, really, and just read them over and over and over and over again, and try to understand their many subtleties and layers of meaning. And it's a life's project, I think, to read James Merrill. And part of the challenge with him is that his poems are often, in particular the early poems, very personal and rest very much on his biography. So like, if you don't know a lot about James Merrill, it can be challenging to understand what he's even talking about in a lot of his earlier work. In particular, I think after the publication of his magnum opus, The Changing Light at Sandover, in the late 70s and early 80s, which is a 500-page occult epic poem that I highly recommend for anybody who has, you know, a year to spend reading, maybe. That's how long it took me, I think. Slow going, but so worth it. But after that experience, his work really shifted, and it became less rarefied, maybe less precious, less personal, maybe, and more involved in an ecological awareness, a social awareness that perhaps the earlier work lacked. So the poem that I've selected comes from that period. It's from the 80s. It's called Developers at Crystal River. Crystal River being a place in Florida where he lived part of the year sometimes. And yeah, I'll start. Developers at Crystal River. Elysian glade, roilings, upshutterings of tinsel, mirror sycamores in wind. No, we are underwater. These are the springs. From deep below the bottom of white sand, mercurial baubles effervesce to aerate a glassed-in bower of bliss they keep at 74 degrees. The mother manatees, brought here as babies, bring their babies here to see the year-round decorations and revel in each tree's renewing fruitlessness. Muses of sheer indolence they are, and foes to nothing in creation. Least of all, those luscious, undulating lawns downstream, plowing through which a sudden tenor scream, the power launch veers, on guard. Paths widen blue, then redden. The huge myopic cows go unheard. Poor, finely wrinkled humps, over and over scarred by the propellers, gaffs and garden tools the boatmen use on them for fun, each year are fewer. Sweet heaven, here comes one, no heavier than a sigh, or small dirigible gone limp, or adipose. Naiad walking through murk on knives, unmarriageable unless to the prince of whales. In her backwater court, she'll have escaped our human hells. Look how the blades have cut even into her. Intuiting the visitor, she drifts closer. Flippers held out, deprecative but lonely, makes to salute her long-lost cousin with his flippers, his camera and visor. Time stops as, face to face, she offers what he'll only back on Earth find words for. A rueful, chaste, unshaven kiss.